Okay, so this gets me wound up right now. So I want to talk about when is Bitcoin going back to $10,000. $10,000 or 9,500 right now. We're on a bit of a down swing. I want to talk about this. People want to know, when's Bitcoin going back up? When's the bull market coming? When are we going to go back and hit $10,000? So I want to talk about this just for a moment because we've kind of dipped down. We were obviously up higher, but we're kind of on a downswing right here. If you look back since July or so, we've been kind of trending downward, and that's several months. And in crypto, that's a very, very long time. So people tend to get worried, because people are always predicting when the next bull market's going to come. Is it going to come this year? Whatever, whatever. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Let me just first say this. I'll talk about the Bitcoin going up, but let me just first say this. I personally don't give two rats craps about today's price of Bitcoin. I have a playlist. In fact, this video is going to be added to that playlist on why I believe Bitcoin is going to be worth $1 million one day. Now, this isn't financial advice. I'm going to give my personal opinions in this video. Don't follow my advice. I'm currently a net loser. I purchased Bitcoin, closer towards the top of the market, so I'm currently a net loser in this space. So don't follow my advice. I'm just an amateur. If you look at my description, I tell you that my entire channel is satire. It's for entertainment purposes. But with that being said, I'm extremely passionate about cryptocurrency and where it's going to go. And I'm very passionate about the fundamentals of it. So let's recap the main fundamental. And the reason I'm making this video is because there's a news story out today that just proves this point even more. And if you're in crypto, I don't care why you got here. I don't care if you got here because you thought you were going to get rich quick on the price. I don't care if you got here because you thought you were going to get rich quick on the altcoins. And I don't care if you're here because you started playing around in the DApp space and you're looking for passive income. I get it. And I'm not going to deny the fact that all that's very interesting and very fascinating. And I talk about that on this channel a lot. But the number one reason that I'm in cryptocurrency, hands down, bar none, is because I believe in the technology of cryptocurrency, specifically at the use case of being a universal currency, trustless blockchain currency. And what I mean by that is you got to understand Bitcoin, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins ever, 21 million individual Bitcoins. That's all there will ever be. There will never be any more. Bitcoins get lost all the time. They get destroyed all the time. No one can create more Bitcoin. Why is that good? Because if you can create more, you can inflate the price of, you can inflate the supply, which will decrease the price over time. The interesting thing is, I think a lot of people understand that because there's tokens out there recently, like the Frag token and Void and different tokens like that are deflationary tokens. So people kind of understand that under normal circumstances, if there's a token burn or if there's token loss, then that creates deflation, and deflation raises the price of the token. This is true with the US dollar. The problem with the US dollar is it gets printed all the time, constantly. Governments control it. Why? Because ultimately, are they looking out for you? I would argue that fiat currency, I think it's Ivan on Tech who first said, fiat currency is for Wall Street. Cryptocurrency is for Main Street. And I think that's phenomenal because I think it's so true, because when currency, anytime money gets printed, and I've got a news story coming up and I'm going to talk about that, but I want you to understand this before we get into the news story. Anytime money gets printed, it's always money, whenever money is printed, the effects of inflation don't happen until that money moves through the economy. Which means that if all of a sudden someone printed $1 million and gave it to you today, as long as you had that $1 million, that $1 million will still buy the same thing today as it would have bought before anyone gave it to you. But once you start spending that $1 million and it gets out it's a brand new $1 million, it starts getting out into circulation, that's when the effects of inflation take place. Now, $1 million in the US money supply is nothing. But the point being is when they print, millions and billions of dollars and that gets pushed into the money supply, there's a reason that your grandparents talk about buying a candy bar for a nickel. And today a candy bar is, $1. There's a reason. It's not because candy bars went up in value. It's because your dollars went down in value. They buy less than they once did. This is a problem because it hurts everybody. It hurts your grandparents, it hurts your parents, and it's going to hurt you if you're saving your retirement just in US dollars, because inflation is a real thing. And there is solid evidence, by the way, that inflation and the way that it's calculated has been changed. And this is getting off the topic of this video, but you need to be aware of this. All you got to do is look at how inflation was calculated 20 years ago. Look at how inflation is calculated today. You will see that they removed certain sectors in their calculation. If they still calculated inflation the way they did 20 years ago, you would see that we're running at an inflation rate, some estimate as high as 10% a year on average. I don't know if that's true or not, but just the fact that they altered how they calculated inflation, that is not in quote unquote Main Street's best interest at all. I am so pro business. I am so pro capitalism, but what I'm not pro is I'm not pro corruption, and I'm not pro crony capitalism, where you take care of the people at the top and be damned the people at the bottom. That's what I'm not a fan of. And that's what fiat currency allows. Now take a look at this. Here's a news story, by the way. This is why I don't care where the price is, and I'll tell you where I think the price is potentially going and how I am planning to prepare for that. So let's talk about this for a moment. Fed adds longer-term cash to the U.S. banking system. Basically, they printed money. They just added more money. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is why? Like, what does that do? And how do we reverse that, or is it even possible? See, I think the biggest use case for cryptocurrency is that for the average people on the street, for Main Street, there's no alternative. There's no way to work our way out of this, and it only gets worse over time. But let's just keep going. The Federal Reserve on Tuesday injected longer-term cash into the U.S. banking system in an effort to meet the funding needs of banks and Wall Street. Notice that's banks and Wall Street, not for the efforts of meeting you. They're not printing money for you to pay your bills. Do you understand? They're not printing money for you to pay your credit card payment. They're not printing money for you to pay your mortgage. They printed money for the funding needs of banks and Wall Street, following a bout of turbulence in money markets last week. The New York Federal Reserve added 30 billion cash into the banking system through 14-day loans to primary dealers. Primary dealers are the highest level of banking. The 14-day term repurchase agreements, repo, were on top of the 75 billion in temporary cash printed through an overnight repo operation. So now 30 billion plus 75 billion. They did 75 billion a week or so ago, and I didn't cover it, and I meant to, and it was still on my list of things to talk about. But now they've just done another 30 billion, which is why I put this video together now. So 105 billion dollars is going to flood. What does that do for us long term? If it stopped at 105 billion, it would be fine, but it's not going to stop there, and I'm going to show you why. Primary dealers, or the top 24 Wall Street firms that do business directly with the Fed, borrow from the central bank by using their treasuries and other bonds as collateral. Their demand for funding was strong, with 62 billion in bids submitted for a 14-day operation and 80.2 billion at the overnight operation. Data from the New York Fed showed. A week ago, the Fed started to add large-scale liquidity into the financial system for the first time since the height of the global credit crisis. Now understand, this always occurs during or preempting a financial crisis. That I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but consistently there's more evidence that we are headed towards a recession in the US, and potentially a deep recession, is hard to say, which a decade ago nearly froze the repo market, a major source of cash for banks and Wall Street. So this is how they get their money. Where does that money come from? Last Tuesday, overnight borrowing costs in the 2.2 trillion repo market spiked as high as 10%, which was 5 times more than what the central bank is targeting now. Analysts generally blamed a shortage of bank reserves as the culprit for the market turbulence. Bank reserves, meaning they're out of money, together with huge seasonal payments for taxes and treasury supply. Let me just pause for a moment. I understand that I'm oversimplifying this for those of you who want to be all smarty pants and smarter than I am. But I am trying to do my best to break this down as simple as possible, because one thing on my channel that I think is important is to be able to help educate people specifically over these things right here. And that because the average person has no idea what's going on. They're just going on about their day, not paying attention. And unfortunately, that's probably going to be where we stay for a long time until there's real pain. I mean, it's always when the citizenry is forced to, then they start paying attention. Only when Venezuela started hyperinflating their currency did the citizens pay attention. Hyperinflation is basically when this happens to a much larger degree. The interesting thing is there is no fine line by saying, oh, it's at this point that it's considered hyperinflation. But inflation clearly is continuing to pick up. And before you start giving me some fundamental number about inflation, you've got to look at the vested interest who's putting out that specific number. When we see right here in the cold hard news that they're printing $100 billion more dollars, you have to ask yourself, why? How's that going to affect us? How do they stop doing that? Let's keep going. So last Tuesday, overnight borrowing cost in the 2.2 trillion repo market spiked as high as 10%, which was 5 times more than what the central bank is targeting now. Analysts generally blamed a shortage of bank reserves as the culprit for the market turbulence, together with huge seasonal payments for taxes and treasury supply. Clearly, the market has stabilized quite a bit, said Jonathan Korn, interest rate strategist at Credit Suisse in New York. The Fed's quick response to provide liquidity has helped the situation. The Fed's quick response to give more credit has helped the situation. Let me ask you, if you have trouble paying your bills and you can't make your credit card payments, or you can't make your car note, or you can't make your house note, you probably would like more credit, but are you going to get it? No, why not? Because they're going to say you can't pay your bills. They're going to say you're not credit worthy. But here we are, the banks can't pay their bills. Now I get it. If they didn't do this, it would mean that we would have a market crash essentially. That's exactly what would happen. I mean, you need to understand that literally we are probably one decision away at the Fed level not to have a market crash. And I don't mean to be a naysayer or doom and gloom. I mean, you need to understand that this is going to be bad because the bubble has been hyperinflated for so much. Markets should shrink and contract and expand. That should be normal over time. But you can't just keep pumping it up. It makes everybody's dollars on Main Street worth a lot less. It means the value of your savings account and your retirement accounts drop a lot more. And it means that inevitably, you're not going to be able to prop it up forever. It's going to crash, and everybody gets hurt a lot more. The only people who don't get hurt are the people who continue to stack assets, who continue to get access to that credit at the highest levels of banking. Those bankers get filthy rich. Remember too big to fail? Those of you that remember the 07 era, the 08 era, banks were too big to fail, so therefore they didn't fail, and they've only gotten bigger, and they've not gotten better with their banking practices. Let's keep going. Primary dealers were able to obtain overnight funding at below market cost. The stop out rate was overnight repos backed by treasuries at the Tuesday's Fed operation was 1.8%, while those on the one-day repo backed by agency debt and mortgage-backed securities was 1.83%. The New York Fed will conduct overnight repo operations worth at least $75 billion through October 10th. It will hold 2 more 14-day term operations worth at least $30 billion on Thursday and Friday. So they're going to be putting more money into the system. I mean, this is going to get even worse. So the question is, how does this stop? Now, here's what they're hoping to do, and here's what happens sometimes. Sometimes there's like a law, okay. For many adults, everybody has a financial threshold, and it's either a debt threshold or a savings threshold. Meaning, as long as your credit card debts, for example, say aren't over $10,000, like most people feel like, okay, I can kind of manage that. Or in some cases, like as long as you have like $5,000 or $10,000 in the bank at least, and most of your debts are paid, you feel like, okay. But you can work your entire life, make as much money as you want, and for whatever reason, people have these psychological threshold. This is a real thing in economy and personal finance. If you've never heard it, you can go back and study it. I don't know the name of it. But basically, most people will always stay kind of in their same financial system, no matter how much money they give you. There's a reason why, they say on average lottery winners end up broke every 2 to 3 years. They go basically back to that sort of where they were at previously to the lottery. That's a normal concept that occurs. But here's what's happening in the banking system. They keep growing their debt. They keep growing their debt. And what they're hoping is that the system kind of levels out, meaning the money coming in from taxes, tax revenues, et cetera, kind of levels out and is able to pay the bills. The money coming in from the banking system kind of levels out and is able to pay the bills for now. But the debt is so deep that all we're doing is servicing it, meaning we're making the minimum payments. The way you get out of this in typical economic cycles is that production increases in the economy. The economy becomes healthy, people create jobs, businesses make money, individuals make money, et cetera. Here's the fundamental problem that we have right now. Based on production, we tend to be in one of our highest economic production levels in decades. We have some of the lowest unemployment on the planet in our history across the board. I mean, Hispanic, African American, and female unemployment is at some of the lowest it's been in recorded history, right at this very moment. Now, you can argue gainfully employed, the wages, blah, 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 blah. You can argue all that. But at this very moment where we're at, our economy is producing all that it can produce. Manufacturing overall across the board this past year has been higher than it's been in recent years. Trump takes credit for that. Doesn't matter if it's him or not. That's not the point. The point is the economy can't produce. Our capacity for producing a lot more is severely limited. Severely limited. We cannot pay off these debts. The Fed is printing more money. Pay attention to these news headlines, by the way. Pay attention when you see this stuff, and just know that's the fundamental use case for cryptocurrency. No one can print more money, and it forces people to be responsible. You know, every single year, Congress votes to raise the debt ceiling or the debt limit of the U.S. government, or there's a government shutdown. And people will always blame, we can't have a government shutdown, people can't work. We can't have a government shutdown, people can't work. But no one understands the fundamental problem, nor do they care because they don't realize how systemic it is. The fundamental problem is that we're saying, yes, you should go into more debt. Yes, U.S. government, you should go into more debt. That ultimately will hurt all of us. And unfortunately, most people are okay kicking the can down the road. Most people can only think about today and tomorrow and this week. And that is a choice. So let me talk about that with cryptocurrency. I understand that systemically something has to happen. At some point, our economic system will be totally overhauled. Now, they will kick the can down the road for a long time. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how long that's going to last. I have no idea. But at some point, it is clear. You just watch the news. When you focus on economic news and you realize, wow, more debt. Wow, more debt. Wow, more debt. Wow, raise the debt ceiling. Wow, raise the debt ceiling. Wow, the credit market's down. Wow. You know, when you see this stuff, I mean, the consumer credit is up. When you see that stuff and you pay attention to these news headlines, you're like, wow, wow, wow. You recognize we're on a certain trend that can't last forever. The trend has to change. At some point, there is going to be an economic shift. I believe there's a very strong chance the shift will be towards a cryptocurrency, and it will be a not third party. That's not the word I'm thinking of. It will be a blockchain, a decentralized blockchain. It won't be a government currency because when this system collapses, it will be bad enough that those on Main Street will no longer trust the government, and they're not going to care whether the government wants to, says that Bitcoin is bad. They're not going to care. They're not going to care if the government says that, it's not safe. They're not going to care that the government says it's not secure. They're not going to care because they're not going to trust the government. They're not going to trust the government to keep their banking, their finances secure from financial security as well as, like hacker security. They're not going to worry about the government. At that point, they'll want to take matters into their own hands. My grandfather was a good example of this. Nobody knew about this. My grandfather had a secret account his entire life where he would save money. And no one ever knew it until they were in their retirement years. That secret account, by the way, was a safe in the house. And even my grandmother, she knew he had the safe. She had no idea what was in it. She had no idea how much was in it. She just knew he had a safe. And he actually, for years, saved money in that safe. He never invested in the stock market. He never invested in the financial system because he lived through the Great Depression and he did not trust the banking system. I believe we're going to cycle through that again, and I believe potentially it could be far more difficult for people. And I also believe the saving grace will be those of us that are already in cryptocurrency. I believe we're going to be just fine. That's why I continue to buy, continue to hodl cryptocurrency. You know what? I have a practice with my main Bitcoin wallet where I never, once it goes in there in crypto, I never pull it out in fiat, ever. Why? Because I know myself, just like I was talking about earlier in this video, most people have a tendency of spending to certain levels. You tend to always stay in a certain amount of debt or you have a certain amount in savings. Most people, if all of a sudden that Bitcoin was worth, if Bitcoin suddenly hit $1 million, most people would rush to cash out and spend that $1 million on what are they going to spend it on. If it was $1 million, I get it. The point is, it doesn't have to go up that much and people want to cash out. There's bills. You'll see all the time in chat. I had to pay bills. I had to sell some of my crypto. I had to pay bills. I had to sell some of my crypto. And I get it. I'm not saying I've never done that, but not out of my primary Bitcoin wallet. That primary wallet is as good as a safe. Like I put it in there and I pull it out. I've been thinking about starting a project on my channel called The Road to 1 Bitcoin because I just think everyone should save 1 Bitcoin. And I thought about using the crypto tab and even faucets to kind of start it out. But anyone can earn their first Satoshi online and start saving those Satoshi. There was a time when Bitcoin was worth like 50 cents and nobody ever thought it would be anything. What if those Satoshi one day end up becoming worth, 5 cents, 10 cents, $1? Who knows? Who knows? Point being, I believe long-term cryptocurrency is going to go up. When will it hit $10,000? That's what I started this video out with. Let me tell you when it's going to hit $10,000. It's going to hit $10,000 when the market decides that it's worth $10,000, and then it may drop back down. I actually don't give two rats crap what the price of Bitcoin does. To be honest with you, I'm going to be very unpopular here because there's a lot of people who just want the price to go up. I don't care. Because I think long term it goes up regardless. So every time I see the price pull back, I see as another chance to buy, another chance to buy. I think it's possible that we could see even lower prices. I'm one of these guys that's like, I wouldn't be shocked if it hits 5,000. It might hit 3,000. Gosh, could it go to 1,000? I kind of hope so. It makes crypto tab hard to promote, but it makes it easy for me to buy Bitcoin. You know what else it does? The one faucet, let me find it. This is kind of interesting. This faucet right here, which I got a video titled "Winning Strategy to Free Bitcoin," and I can put that above. I can put that above. But the thing with this faucet here is they basically pay out. This base pay is always paid out based on whatever the price of Bitcoin is. I don't know what this ends up being, whatever it is, a couple cents or whatever. They always pay this out. So when Bitcoin was like at 20,000 or whatever, they were paying out 120 BTC. 120 Satoshi. Sorry. So what's interesting is they always pay out more. And I don't roll like a ton. By the way, I didn't ever update it. I'll go ahead and while I'm here, I'll go ahead and give that update. I did a video. Maybe it was a winning strategy video where I talked about the golden ticket in the contest. I ended up getting 3 golden tickets. I ended up cashing out what I had. So I guess I got, basically a $1.6 million chance of winning 200,000 Bitcoin, 200,000 USD in Bitcoin. So in that case, I guess Bitcoin price needs to drop because, when I win, I need that to be a lot more Bitcoin. But I'm just kidding partially. So I will say, when it comes to like Bitcoin prices, I don't really care. If it goes lower, I'm just going to buy more. I just periodically, kind of dollar cost average into Bitcoin. Everyone's talking about my last video. I'm going to just keep dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin indefinitely. I think if the price goes down, I'm not concerned. Look, the BTC dominance is going up. It means people are playing less in the altcoin space, which I think is a good thing. I think Bitcoin is currently the best use case for a financial instrument. And I think those of us that are already aware of the space, those of us that are already in Bitcoin, will be far better off in the long run. Because when you see news headlines like this, there's no, this is a recent news story. It was this morning. It was updated 44 minutes ago. There is no ignoring the fact that our current economic system is in trouble and we're going to have to switch to a new model. And this current economic system is going to lose the faith of the average citizens. So they're going to have to do something to create an economy that is going to be backed by gold. But see, they've already done that. So I don't know that citizens will buy into that. So what's the next alternative? Just go straight cryptocurrency. Or try to do something backed by cryptocurrency. But see, here's the interesting thing about cryptocurrency. They can't stop it. They can't control it. Like if people really, really want to, they can transact on the blockchain. Yes, the government can make it difficult to buy USD to Bitcoin, but there's always local Bitcoins. You can find somebody in meetup groups. You can find someone in the tech community that has Bitcoin. They'll sell you Bitcoin. No one can stop that transaction from actually happening. Oh, there's always these people that says, yeah, but what if the internet goes down? They would have to shut down the entire worldwide internet. A, that's probably never going to happen. B, could they, put firewalls up kind of like China does to some degree and potentially stop it? I don't think they'll stop it 100%, but even if they do, there's companies out there that are currently transacting over shortwave radio waves, meaning within a certain space. There's a technology out there where you can use a certain type of shortwave radio wave where they've already transacted Bitcoin without using an actual internet connection to make the transaction. And there's also transactions occurring through satellite. These are all in their infancy, but that is where we are headed 100%. So I don't think the government under any circumstances, even the most far out circumstances, will ever truly be able to stop cryptocurrency. The only question is exactly how does the economy change? But I personally don't believe there's any question that cryptocurrency and potentially Bitcoin is going to be the absolute pivotal point. There's no other currency right now other than Bitcoin that I think most people would trust as a primary currency. But as a currency on a trustless blockchain, fully decentralized, that is the single biggest use case, in my personal opinion, of cryptocurrency. There's no bigger use case for it. And I believe it's going to be coming. It's going to be necessary. And at that point, the price of Bitcoin will go up. And I believe there's no stopping it. You can go look at some of my videos on that Bitcoin to $1 million. I mean, it's if you just look at the current money supply, and if you just saw the buying power in the current money supply, I think there's some studies that I've quoted or articles that I've quoted where they basically say that Bitcoin would have to be worth, it was like closer to 10 million per Bitcoin. So the $1 million per Bitcoin may be an understatement. But all you got to do to look for proof of that is just watch the current news cycle. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pioneers in this space. Don't stop paying attention. Keep your eyes open. Don't listen to what people say. Oh yeah, the economy's doing good. Oh yeah, we're doing great. It's no big deal. Watch what they're doing. If the economy was doing so great, we wouldn't have credit issues at the highest levels of banking. That is the number one proof that there's problems on the horizon. But you're in Bitcoin, you're in crypto, you're going to be better off than most. Thank you so much. Hit that like button. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. Stay tuned for more in an upcoming video. Thank you so much for watching.